Mark, yesterday the Mets lose 2-0 in 2 hours and 12 minutes. Now, I know that some games go 2 hours and 12 minutes, but for me, correct me if I'm wrong, I think those are the games that are right before the All-Star break or at the end of the season when you're not going to the playoffs. To me, 2-12 means you're really not trying.
Yeah, you know what? It's tough for me to say these guys aren't trying. What unfortunately, this team has realized is they're not going to win. I mean, I was on your show last week, guys, and still thinking the Mets could strap on their boots and go and try to win a couple games and back to Grom. It's just not happening. And I think they're looking themselves in the mirror and saying, we're the third worst team in the National League. Only the Reds and the Marlins are worse than the Mets right now, and that's a tough pill to swallow, and I think the Mets players have actually swallowed it right now.
Well, I guess the example is Soroka is a kid. He's 20. He had a pitch count of 80 to 85, all right? He's got a no-hitter through 5, Mark. And without even watching the game, if I throw this stat at you, I think it's an indicator. They went down 1, 2, 3 in the 6th inning on 6 pitches. I mean, shouldn't your manager, somebody on the bench say, guys, work the count here. Let's get this guy out of here. He's on a pitch count. How do you get retired 3 batters on 6 pitches in that situation?
No, absolutely, Don. The problem is I don't think the Mets have the players to get it done. And if I look at the Mets team right now and I say, who would I want to take into, the next round of Mets greatness? Who do I protect? There's only one guy that I'm excited about right now, and that's Brandon Nimmo. Everybody else has lots of question marks. Conforto, talking about sending him down. I'm not sure if Rosario is going to be able to hit in the big leagues. There's a lot of question marks with the entire roster. And so I'm sure Mickey Callaway and the coaching staff were telling these guys to get it together and foul off some pitches and work some counts. I'm just not sure if the players that are currently on the roster are capable of those big league at-bats.
You've been in a lot of clubhouses throughout your life and had some losing streaks. And a lot of people, I've suggested this a couple of times in my life, because I covered Billy Martin. Flip over a table. Does that work?
It does. It does with good teams, Michael. When you have a bad team and your manager starts flipping over tables or your GM starts blasting the papers or whatever it might be to try to flip that switch, it can just get even worse. And all the players are like, well, we stink anyway. I'm giving up. Now, when you have a good team and the manager comes in and says, you guys are supposed to be in first place. You're supposed to be the best team in baseball, and you're playing like dogs right now. That's when that type of action actually works. That's when the players respond, and they get together and they say, guys, enough's enough. It's June 14th. Let's start playing baseball. But again, I don't think this is a good team right now, and that type of action probably wouldn't do much good.
One more Met one, because I genuinely don't know the answer to this. After the first game of the series, Wheeler stayed in the game way too long. Callaway had already been thrown out earlier in the game. So when he's interviewed afterwards, he pleaded ignorance on Wheeler staying in too long because he said he got thrown out. He wasn't managing the game. You were in the clubhouse, obviously. You were in the dugout when managers got thrown out. Can you continue the manage? Can you plead ignorance on something just because you were thrown out of the game?
I think 90% of the games I've ever played in the big leagues when managers were thrown out, they still managed. Okay. Now, whether it was through a clubhouse guy kind of running back and forth or through the phone or whatever it might be, they're still managing. And in today's ballparks, most of the new ballparks have either a video room or a weight room or something really close to the dugout where they can just scream up the tunnel and tell guys what to do. So I think this is growing pains for Mickey Callaway. I'm still a big Mickey Callaway fan. I think he's going to end up being a good manager. But, he's been given a tough hand here. And he's trying to play poker, and he just doesn't have the hand to play it right now.
Let's talk Yankees on Friday at Citi Field. Tanaka scoring from third on a sac fly to right. Actually pulls both of his hamstrings. And I said this even before it happened. I don't care what team it is. I understand that the pitcher's hitting adds a little bit more strategy. People just get giddy over the double switch. But is it fair to have just one league have the pitchers hit, and then during interleague play, guys that never, ever hit are hitting and running the bases?
Nope, it's not fair for the teams in the American League, and it's not fair for the pitchers. Let's remember, back in the days when there was no DH, guys hit. So pitchers whether you were a kid in Little League or high school or college or the minors, you were always hitting. So you get to the big leagues, and you're used to hitting. And so guys are a little more athletic. They're used to running the bases. They're used to swinging that bat. Nowadays, you have kids specializing at 10 years old. Hey, you're a pitcher. I don't want you picking up a bat. And we literally have pitchers in the big leagues that haven't swung a bat consistently for 10, 15, 20 years. And now we're asking them to go out in interleague play and face the best pitchers in baseball and run the bases every now and then. I just don't think it makes any sense. There's no other sport that makes guys do this. I mean, all of a sudden, are you going to make punters line up on the line just because, you're playing in a different league or playing a different game? These guys are going to get crushed.
Right.
You would never ask somebody to do that. I think it's unfair for the pitchers. This is going to get changed. I'm not saying it's next year. Within the next 5 years, 10 years max, we're going to see no more pitchers hitting in the National League. In National League parks.
I 100% agree with you. Okay, it's silly now too, because when we were growing up, Mark, there were differences between the American League and National League, right? The umpiring was different. Now everything, the only difference is the DH. So I would get rid of it. But until you do get rid of it, Mark, you're the New York Yankees. You're competing to go to the World Series. All right, Tanaka gets hurt trying to tag up. What if that's Game 7 of the World Series? You would want him to score. You know that there are going to be interleague games where they're going to have to hit. They're going to have to run the bases. So until it gets changed, do they need to carve out more time in spring training or during off days to teach them to run the bases and do better at the plate?
Yeah, Don, that's a great point. And yes, that's the answer. If the rules are the rules, you absolutely need your pitchers to try to be more athletic. Now, pitchers aren't all of a sudden going to become Brett Gardner, but you need these guys to run more. You need these guys to run the bases more. Unfortunately, what happens is a week before their start in the National League Park, they take 2 rounds of batting practice and maybe run the bases once. Like it's not like it's just kind of like cramming for a test. It's not like they've been doing it since spring training. So if these are going to be the rules, we should do a better job with our American League pitchers so they don't get hurt when they're playing.
Talking with Mark Teixeira's weekly spot on the Michael K. Show. Mark, tonight, Gary Sanchez back in the lineup. 3 straight days of not playing baseball. Monday was an off day. Did not play Tuesday or Wednesday against the Nationals. Does that help a guy who's lost?
It does, because I think sometimes when you're trying to fix your swing, I mean, I think his swing's off. I think his timing's off. I think his hands were moving a little bit too much. Gary has a very complex swing, got a lot of moving parts, but because he's just great, and he's such a natural hitter, he gets away with it. When he gets off, it can look really bad. What 3 days off in a row is you just work on that timing in the cage. You look at your tape. You look at when you were really good. You put it right up next to a tape of when, you strike out 3 times or you're missing pitches. He's a catcher. If he's playing these games, he's got to be grinding with the pitchers. He's got to be talking with the pitching coaches and making sure that he's got a game plan for that day. It's very difficult as a catcher to be struggling as a hitter and then work with your pitcher and try to win a ball game that night.
Who are some of the pitchers out there, Mark, that you might be eyeballing the Yankees could go after? Because they obviously need a pitcher now with Montgomery out. And they probably were looking for one even before he got injured. So any names pop into your head? Anything feasible?
Yeah, the 2 guys for me that let's stop the DeGrom talk. I don't see that happening. It's fun to talk about because we're in New York. I don't see that happening. I see J. Happ or Cole Hamels. And the reason I like those lefties is lefties at Yankee Stadium are proven these guys have much more success. If you're good, obviously you have to be good. When I have a righty up there, he makes one mistake to a left-handed hitter and pulls it down the right field line, and the game's over. I'd much rather have a lefty out there, make a right-handed hitter hit the ball over 399 sign in left center. Make a guy earn his home run or earn his big hit in a big situation. And that's why I think those type of lefties, guys like Hamels, Happ, they keep the ball down, they might be good for Yankee Stadium.
Did you see yesterday's game?
I did not.
Did you see the highlights of Soto's home run?
I did see the highlights.
Now, the 2 guys I did the game with, they never played in this ballpark. You did. How difficult is it for a lefty batter to hit it where he hit it over the Yankee bullpen into that Toyota Terrace?
Almost impossible. I don't know what the wind conditions were last night, but this is a 19-year-old kid who it's almost impossible for a lefty to hit that ball there. And so it's tough for a righty to hit that ball there. I mean, that's Judge Stanton territory, right?
Yep.
So this kid is special. And when they talk about the next greatest player in Major League Baseball, he's going to be in that category for discussion for the next few years.
All right, we've got some text messages. This is Chris Lucas from Clifton. He said, I see players talk at first base all the time. What do you guys talk about?
Everything. Who knows what you're talking about? If it's a tight game, I didn't like talking at all just because it's almost disrespectful to the sport when it's a 2-1 game in the ninth and you're chatting it up with the guy at first. But for me, I had a lot of friends in it, during the years, during my career. Hey, how's the family? How's this? What's going on? How do you like your new team? Where are you living? If it's a guy I don't know, it's really small talk with, how's it going, man? Good luck. But, by the end of your career, and I knew these guys for 14 years, you talk about all different kinds of stuff. And so I enjoyed it. That part of baseball was a lot of fun for me because I felt like I got to know the entire league being at first base when they came by.
This is from Brendan. Mark, during your career, you were known as a phenomenal first baseman with your glove. Would you trade one of your Gold Glove awards for an MVP award?
Yeah. I think that's an easy question. They give out 9 Gold Gloves. They only give out 1 MVP. So I might just take one of my Gold Gloves and keep it, and I'll trade the other 4 for an MVP. How about that?
Sounds good. Mike from Nyack said, do the Yankees really need to make a trade for pitching? With Chance Adams and Justice Sheffield in the pipeline, can't we just call them up and win it all?
It's not that easy. It really isn't. These young players, the pitchers, they have talent, they have ability, but you saw with Severino when he first came up. He was not a slam dunk. He had to work. It took him 2 full years to really figure it out. And to think that Sheffield or Adams are going to come up in a pennant race and all of a sudden be great pitchers, that's asking a lot of these kids. And the second thing is, the Yankees are in second place. The Red Sox are a really good team. The Yankees need to win this division because if the season ends today, the Astros are coming into the Bronx, and you might have to face Justin Verlander for the wild card game. That's a scary situation. Now, ultimately, I think that the Astros will win the West, and they don't have to worry about that. But the Yankees need a pitcher because they need to win more games in the regular season to get that division.
Before I let you go, we talked a little bit about this on the broadcast yesterday, and I love to play the what-if game because it's a conundrum for the Mariners. They've played great ball since Cano got suspended. So they moved D. Gordon from center field to second base. He's been great. They traded for Denard Span to play center field. He's been great. Now, when Cano comes back sometime toward the end of August, he can't play in the playoffs. He can finish out the season, can't play in the playoffs. What do you do? Do you start playing him at second base right away and disrupt D. Gordon, who's going to play second base if they make the playoffs?
This is one of the toughest questions you'll ever have to ask in baseball. I mean, you have a player who has all-star credentials. When he's healthy, he's one of the best second basemen in baseball. But your team has been on fire since he's left. And again, he can't play in the playoffs. So I think he becomes it's crazy to even say this, a utility player. These things tend to work themselves out. Someone gets hurt, someone gets dinged up, someone gets in a slump, and Robinson Cano is a good enough athlete. If you need to play a little first base, if you need to play a little outfield, I'd put Robinson Cano in the outfield and say he'd be an average outfielder on day one. So I agree with what the Mariners said. I think Dipoto said it the other day, that he's got to earn his playing time, and he's going to platoon maybe at some positions because the Mariners are on fire, and you wouldn't want to mess that up.
It's really, to me, I agree with you. It's an amazing problem because if you take the PED suspension out, this guy's on a Hall of Fame arc, and he's going to come back, and there's not going to be a job for him.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said it's one of the toughest questions to answer. I do not envy the Mariners front office and coaching staff's position right now
because they still have another, I think, 6 years too.
And you're in a lose-lose situation almost. So I don't know if Robinson Cano comes back and he's a platoon player or bench player. he's not going to be happy.
No.
If he comes back and takes the position of one of those guys that has been carrying the load while he's been suspended for PEDs, the rest of the team's not going to be happy. So, unfortunately, you're going to have a clubhouse divided. You're going to have a fan base divided. You might even have coaching staff that, that are saying, well, this is what we should do. That's what we should do. It's just not an enviable position for anybody.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mark.
All right, guys. Always fun.